Okay, so I've been working on the Jack and Carol murder case again. We've done a couple of sessions, and it's funny, I was on the phone with Gerald this morning who watched the video I put up yesterday, and he was discussing some of the names, some of the mafia that's in this town. Gerald knows things. Yeah, so I guess it's not quite a hidden thing in this town. Everybody knows who's in charge of what. And as I was on the phone with Gerald, my aunt called me. And she said, I got up at 4 this morning. She said, I've just been driven since I watched your last video to start looking into this case and if I can help you. And she said, I found this book by a woman who wrote the story Life Lived Inside Out. And it's her memoir of going and meeting Donald Kelly in prison. And she wanted to get the inside scoop, but she fell in love with him. And I thought, I've heard of this book before, but I didn't want to read it because it's a love story. And I'm like, no, I'm after facts and blah, blah, blah. Well, I actually saw on Amazon, you can look now and read an insert from it. And they're talking about the trial. She's asking Donald questions about the day he was captured and how he reiterates what happened and that he didn't shoot Cloud to the police dog, that they shot their own dog. And instantly I was like, I need to get this book. I just looked at the library and there's a copy there. We're going to the library. Let's go. Ha! Mission successful. We got the last copy in North Bay. So that's the woman there who started a relationship with Donald Kelly. Let's read all about it. This could have something in it of substance for our investigation. A prisoner escapes from a jail in Northern Ontario, precipitating a massive month-long manhunt, interrupting the lives of local residents through the invasion of roadblocks, aerial surveillance, tactical and rescue team maneuvers, and unrelenting media coverage. While at large, the fugitive collects almost 24 captives whose description of him defies the stereotypic image of wanton criminal portrayed by the media. Instead, they report a peculiarly erudite and sympathetic man who at times seems chagrined and even remorseful at having been forced to ensnare them in his personal drama. That kind of coincides with what the boxers told us about Donald Kelly. All right, this is our Spirit Box session, Donald Kelly 2. I've just finished the book by Bette Logan, A Life Lived Inside Out, and we're going to ask some questions in regards to that. Tell me about the woman that you shared a relationship while you were behind bars. What was her name? She wrote a memoir about your relationship. What did you think about this book? Full shivers, guys. I didn't hear any of this sitting there, but it's right on point, okay? The first things that it says is, I felt guilt. And then it says Betty's name. It says, can remember. It says Bette again. It says prison. So these are all right on point. It's profound. What did you think of the book? And he says he was filled with anger. And then it says safe. So I think he's saying that the book was safe. It didn't get into enough detail. It didn't cover enough things that maybe he wanted covered. Live life. So it's using two of the words from the title of her book. And then it says big myth. Trapped. Want to give up. He didn't live his life. He did the best he could, but he wasn't living life. And for the box to say that stuff right now, all of those words that pertain to what we're talking about, again, is mind-blowing. Oh, that said my name so clear right there. Gonna connect with Donald, send out light and love. A solid handshake. I need to hear from you, Donald, in your own words. You need to help me with this case. I know you were wrongly convicted, but maybe that was the greater plan for you from the universe. What do you think about that? I hope this isn't just a love story about this woman. When she saw these things happening in the media, she had to meet the man and wanted to know the truth of the story. But I think what happened was they started a relationship. And I don't know which way this book is going to go, but there could be something in here that we can use. 12 pages in. It's interesting. She's already covered how Donald escaped from prison, how she went down and watched the trial as it was happening. She talks about what he was wearing, things that were said. There is definitely going to be information in this book that we can use. I find out that he's left-handed. So she asks him about the cast on his arm. She just arrived at the prison down in Kingston with Donald Kelly's mother. She brought her mother down there. She's trying to get information to write a book. This is why she goes to see him. And he talks about why his arm was in a cast. You guys know that I found an article saying that cloud had caused injuries to Donald Kelly's arm. This was reported the first day he was in the hospital upon him being captured. And there was a photo of him being wheeled down the hallway. And they ended up putting a cast on it. Well, Donald says that's where they shot him. And then he fell and his arm broke and there was a piece of bone missing. And a year later, he was still in a cast. So we are going to be getting information from this book. I need to figure out if Betty, I think it's Betty with an E, Bette, Bette Logan, is still alive or not. I may need to talk to this woman. They shattered it when they shot me down. But that was almost a year ago. Yeah, but they had to put a pin and a plate in. There's a piece of bone this big missing, and he curls his thumb and index finger together to indicate the size of a large marble. It's nearly time to take it off. Are you right-handed? No, left. Well, that's lucky. Interesting, too, I think. And what about Cloud, he asks. What do you think about the dog? There was no question in my mind about that. Well, that was clear. In the OPP's evidence, wasn't it? They shot their own dog. There's no dispute about that. It bothers me more that they say I shot the dog than the people. And this is to the heart of the matter. Anyone that knew Donald Kelly say that even though he was a criminal and that he did things and didn't think about other people, he wasn't a cold-hearted killer. And right, his own words out of his own mouth, it bothered him more that people thought that he shot the dog than the people. In the book, Betty talks in one of her letters about a poem that Donald told her to read, The Men That Don't Fit In. But she asks him in the book, who is the author? Well, Robert Service is a famous poet, and he has a poem, The Men That Don't Fit In, and I believe this is the poem Donald was talking about, and I'm just going to read that right now. There's a race of men that don't fit in, a race that can't stay still. I'm getting a full shiver down the back. So they break the hearts of kith and kin, and they roam the world at will. They range the field, and they rove the flood, and they climb the mountain's crest. Theirs is the curse of the gypsy blood, and they don't know how to rest. If they just went straight, they might go far. They are strong and brave and true, but they're always tired of things that are, and they want the strange and new. They say, could I find my proper groove? What a deep mark I would make. So they chop and change, and each fresh move is only a fresh mistake. And each forgets as he strips and runs with a brilliant, fitful pace. It's the steady, quiet, plodding ones who win the lifelong race. And each forgets that his youth has fled, forgets that his prime is past, till he stands one day with a hope that's dead in the glare of the truth at last. He has failed. He has failed. He has missed his chance. He has just done things by half. Life's been a jolly good joke on him, and now's the time to laugh. Ha ha, he is one of the legion lost. He was never meant to win. He's a rolling stone, and it's bred in the bone. He's a man who won't fit in. Tell me about the poem, The Men That Don't Fit In. Bette Logan, are you dead?
Help, 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 help.
Okay, so Buzz. In the last video, I thought we had figured out who Buzz was. And I'm sitting here early this morning, and I got a call from Aunt Angie, who tells me that there was somebody named Buzz. Graham Levitt. He is deceased. However, she went to his wedding, and he was a friend of, you'll never guess, Ian Rose. So, is that the Buzz that broke into the apartment? Because that's what the spirit box, when it first mentioned Buzz, was in relation to breaking into Jack and Carol's apartment, which was under police guard, being investigated because they believe that's where they were abducted from the night they were murdered. There was blood in a doorway. Their last meal was sitting on the table, uneaten. They'd been at that party that night and left around midnight. Graham Levitt, nickname Buzz. She didn't know his real name. And Angie told me for many years, everybody called him Buzz. Now, in the last video, I was like 100% connected and intuitively feeling and have felt for a long time that Buzz was a cop. So is this the right Buzz? I don't know, but we've got to throw this into the mix because here's a real character who everybody knew as Buzz. And the box was saying Buzz, and this guy is one of Ian's close friends. So it can't be ignored. We've got to throw this. We've got to write this down in the book of clues. Why would my informant, who I called, and he refused to talk about it, said he would take this to the grave, not acknowledged that he knew a Buzz? Very suspicious because he was best friends, and I mean best friends, with Ian. They committed attempted murder together. He would have known there was a Buzz. In fact, I guarantee you he would have been at that wedding. Why would he not tell me there was a Buzz? He said, I didn't know any Buzz. No, I don't think so, was his exact words. You liar. Can't trust any of these people. You should already know that. They're murderous, thieving dogs. All of them. Is Graham Levitt the Buzz I am looking for? I heard it say, I'm upset with him. In the original Spirit Box sessions that we did on Donald Kelly, he clearly stated through the box that he did not shoot Cloud. He apparently was holding his rifle, the 30-30, by the barrel as he fled from police at the cabin in the woods. And now, again, right out of his own mouth, here in this book, he's saying he didn't shoot Cloud. And the evidence seems to support that. And here's one more thing that the author points out that I hadn't really thought about. But she says, if you had shot the dog or shot at the police, you can be sure there would have been a few more charges on top of the 28 that you got. So yeah, he was never charged with attempted murder of those police officers because he never shot at them. He just tried to run away when they apprehended him in the woods, and he never shot his gun at the dog. He didn't kill the dog. So originally they said that, you know, he shot the dog, and they came up with this elaborate story saying that the first words out of his mouth were, I'm sorry I shot the dog, which would be baloney. We talked about that in the original video I did. And I think now we're going to put that to bed. Kelly, Carson yelled, let the dog go, and fired. Kelly grabbed his 30-30 by the barrel and jumped over a washstand at the far end of the porch, falling over it in the attempt. "Shoot the bastard," yelled Carson. With that, Gianni ran forward, firing 3 times with his sawed-off 12-gauge semi-automatic shotgun, aiming at the biggest part of the body, between the shoulder blades, he stated. Kelly was rolling down the hill, the dog hanging onto him, numerous shots hailing on them. Within seconds, Cloud was down. And that is the actual court testimony of Officer Gianni. Well, here's Kelly's take on it. But then Carson yells, "Kelly!" I turn to grab my rifle, and his first shot gets me here. He indicates a spot on his back, near the shoulder. I jump over the washstand. They get me again here and here. He taps the places in the back and the back of his arm. Cloud has me by the sleeve. We're rolling down the bank, all tangled up together, getting peppered. He rears up, looks me right in the eyes, gives a sigh, and sinks down. At the bottom of the hill, Kelly looked up. No signs of them, so he went into the bushes to check his wounds. 12 in all. Some bleeding badly, burning and sore. And then he started coughing blood. I know I won't last long if my lungs are shot, so I fire 3 shots. I wait a long time, but no one comes. One more super important thing I found in the back of this book is the email for Bette, I'm not sure. Betty with an E. I think her mother had a pretty sick sense of humor. Maybe it is Betty. I don't know. Anyway, I've got her email, and I'm going to read to you guys the email that I'm sending, even though I have calculated what her age would be, because in the book she says in 1976 she was 39, so you guys can do the math. This is the email I'm actually sending. Dear Betty, I laughed as I typed that, both for the reasons mentioned in your book and because in all probability I am writing to a woman who is not going to answer me. My quick math skills would have you at an advanced age, and the probability that anyone responds is equivalent to me winning the next Lotterio. I will keep this short due to the above mentioned probability. I'm a local North Bay resident who has for the past 2 years been stuck on the events of November 17th, 1969, the Carol and Jack McWilliams case. I have read every scrap of newspaper I can find, book and article on the subject. I am fascinated. I truly believe that Donald Kelly was innocent. In fact, Carol McWilliams even told me so. We won't get into that unless, in the world of small probabilities, you actually still exist on this plane and you get back to me. I have tried in vain to get court files, and as we all know, newspaper clippings refute earlier findings depending on what day they are printed. I am hoping beyond hope that you are still alive and well, and that you could share some insights with me of the man himself. I have local contacts who insist Donald Kelly was railroaded and framed. I have others who insist they know who killed Jack and Carol, and yet they refuse to talk about the matter and will take it with them to their graves. Why this case has not been turned into a movie or miniseries by now simply defies logic. This case has it all. Hoping you respond, Gary She Reed. So, we'll see if this woman is still alive and gets back to me. Probably not, but I'm going to throw that out there for the universe. It's another lead that we have to check out. All right, from page 65 or so on, I'm basically just skimming through. These all seem to be the letters that she sends to him, the information that she sends to him. It's not talking about the case. It's basically a flirtatious back and forth, and as their romance blooms. Not my kind of book from page 65 on. I'm going to just start skimming through. I'm trying to find, is there some little piece of information in here? It's so cool that she had contact and was so close and doing what I want to do and had the opportunity to get that information firsthand. But again, here we are, 50 years later at this point, because all of this took place in the 70s. Now, does she have boxes of this stuff in a garage in one of her kids' places somewhere? All the letters that he wrote, all of the court documents and files and notes that she got from Donald. Oh, shiver down the back of my neck. Could I pursue that? I basically know who the kids are. Her brother's name was Gary. I've learned a lot about this woman, but the important thing is, where are all the goodies from Donald Kelly in this day and age? Nobody would even care about it, I'm sure. If there is any of this stuff left, it's in a box in somebody's attic or garage or, just sitting there. They probably don't even know it's there. That's what I'm interested in. I'll let you guys know if I find anything else. My plan is over the next hour and a half to just kind of skim through this and see if there's anything. I don't want to miss anything, but really, I don't think I am at this point. It's turned into a love story. Blech. On page 205 of the book, we finally get to the good stuff. Not the facts on the murder case. Tell me about it. I think I heard it. In the early pages of the book, Betty mentions you do not kill Cloud. On page 84, she stresses this point again. How important is this to you, Donald? I asked Jack how important it is that people know that he didn't kill the dog, and the response is not one I was expecting. The box says both the murder victims' names, Carol, Jack, and then it says Pat Fregamini, the woman whose testimony put Donald away. She was purported to have been bought out either by Blackie Plagisi, Carol's dad, accepting a $5,000 bribe, or the police themselves to change her testimony between the years of 1969 and 76 when the trial took place. She completely changed what she said took place the night of the party, and that is why he went to prison. And Donald goes on to say, they know. There's no way the box is making this up, guys. 3 names? The 2 murder victims? Come on. This is real. Do you have a message for me, Donald? I swear I heard my name there again. Donald Kelly, did you kill Carol and Jack McWilliams? Hopefully Donald said whatever he feels needed to be said. He's not a cold-blooded killer, just it didn't add up. Well, here's further proof. I'll just read a section to you guys from this. While she's out investigating people that were held captive while camping, and Donald found them in the woods. By the time Kathleen had cooked breakfast and Don and Jerry were having a beer, Kathleen made coffee. Don told them all he really needed was a pair of jeans and whatever food they could spare, but he would have to stay until dark, and he was sorry to inconvenience them. Soon it was so hot in the tent that Andy suggested they all go to the trailer where they could sit under the canopy. Jerry told children they could go play but not to get out of sight. If anyone came, they were to come back and not say anything. Don took a block of wood into the trailer. He sat on it and talked through the open door, the rifle propped against the wall behind him. That gun was never pointed at anyone, nor was it ever in a position where someone could have walked in front of it. It was always safe and away, but within his reach. You seem like such a nice fellow, Anne-Marie felt, free enough to say, how in the name of God did you get yourself in so much trouble? He said he'd studied psychology in prison, trying to figure that out, but hadn't come up with an answer. So this guy there's more to him than I would have thought. He studies psychology. When he talks about things, he talks about movies and letters, reading people. He wasn't just a street goon like the newspaper articles would have you believe. There was more to him. He studied psychology. He had to be a fairly intelligent person, and he's amicable. Everyone who meets this guy liked Donald Kelly. He prepared these guys around the campfire for what could happen. If anyone comes, he told them, talk to them as usual. Be casual, but not so friendly that they'll stay. If the police show up and shooting starts, fall flat on the ground. The police will shoot at anyone who runs, and that will be me. This guy cared enough about these strangers that he met in the bush to tell them, I don't want you to get shot, so you better listen to me. Right? They talked about hunting. They talked about camping, fishing. They talked about his case. None of it makes sense personality-wise. I wish I could have met this guy just to get a read on it myself. I consider myself pretty good at reading people. I mean, just from the articles and the newspaper clippings alone, and now what she's confirming through her investigations, I think we have a good idea of what really went on here. Get this, at the end of the interview with the people at the campground, they told me to give you their best wishes for the appeal. They're convinced you'll win in the second trial if there is one. Said they're really hoping for you. And Andy said you're welcome at their house for a drink. Anytime. page 117. We might have some gold here, guys. Betty is interviewing the last captive, who was actually the first kid captured by Donald Kelly. And when they were walking along, this kid Brent and Donald are talking. Donald asks him, "Do you think all cops are honest?" "I think there are both kinds," Brent replied. And that triggered a long, detailed account on Don's part of how one policeman in particular was trying to frame him. But it doesn't say who! So as Donald and Brent come out of the bush, they hear a motorcycle, and they go intercept these two kids sitting on the ground having a smoke, and Donald tries to figure out, is he going to steal the motorcycle? What's he going to do if he gets one of these kids to drive him somewhere on the bike, because he's not sure he can drive a motorcycle. The other two would be free to go report him. And the kids suggest, well, we'll rip up our t-shirts and you can tie us up. And Donald replies, he'd hate to leave them there with the flies so bad. Again, this is a guy who's thinking of other people. He can't figure out what to do with the kids on the motorcycle and Brent. But the younger sister and some friends come looking for those kids because they're now late, and she has a car. They get in the car. They all drive around, and again, the same thing happens. Donald tells them the same thing he told the campers. "Everyone stay calm," Don tells the group. "Keep still and don't look back. If we get stopped, don't panic. Stay in the car regardless of what happens. If shooting starts, duck down, but stay in the car. They'll shoot at the one to run. I'll be that one." And this was because a cop car was following up the escarpment, as Don had decided to take these kids and leave them at their house where they said their parents were out of town for the weekend. So he was going to take them there, tie them up, and make his getaway in the car. Again, all these people, dozens of people that he took hostage throughout that 50-day through the bush ordeal, he never hurt a single person. Their relationship was something extraordinary at the time. He was in confinement, and Betty would have been a bright light in a dark place, I'm sure. And he did have a place in his heart for her. He did love her. She loved him. But it doesn't further our murder case. So I did finish the book, guys. I skimmed through the second half. Really not much in terms of the case there. But it was almost like being able to talk to him, get inside the mind a little bit. There were bits and pieces I got from this, but it doesn't help the actual case itself. This book is more involved with the happenings of the 1975 prison escape, basically. That's where all of her research was. But she asked him questions. She sent him questions in all these letters, but she never states what the questions were. God, I wish I knew, and I wish I had his responses. There could be something in there that could have led us somewhere further, but she ended up back in North Bay at the end of the book, which is my hometown here. But did she stay here after that? I don't know. Did she die here? I don't even know if this woman is alive or dead. But I think that's it for this chapter of the story that I'm working on. We read it, and as far as I know, there are only two books. Berrigan's book, The Police Chief, and this one. We read them both. Neither one really helped us further our case to figure out what happened to Jack and Carol.